Welcome to the admiration series. Just chilling in the front yard, trying to build on the lessons that we've learned from the people that we've read. And so this week, I thought we'd take the Lord's Prayer and use that as a prism to understand the people that we've studied in the admiration series, or to use the people in our series to understand the Lord's Prayer. I'm not sure which way that goes, but we're going to try to look at prayer, both the sort of internal, on our own side of it, and also the external active part of prayer, so that we can grow in our formation of our faith, so that we can better serve this community in love. When we look at the Lord's Prayer, I think it's, or that reading in Luke 11, I think we look at three different things going on. We look at the conditions for prayer, and we look at the elements of prayer, and then we look at the Lord's Prayer itself as a paradigm for prayer. Let's start with the conditions. First of all, the disciples asked Jesus to teach them to pray. Now that's interesting because, first of all, it wasn't a theory. It was something that they knew he lived. And these guys gave up everything to follow him. They must have thought that in some ways he was amazing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have followed him. And it's just so many times that Jesus went off to pray by himself that they must have realized that a part of his amazingness is this quiet life that he has developed on his own. And which is kind of crazy, because if his mission was to last only 33 years and to save humanity from itself, I mean, why wasn't he out healing everybody and, saving the world? He actually had to take time to develop his own formation, his own spiritual formation. No, another thing I think is very interesting in this reading is that it says that he went off to a certain place, not just any old place, but a certain place. We're running into a culture that literally says, I read in the Des Moines Register, there was an article that said this lady was standing on the back porch of her house, and it was about urban sprawl making inroads into cornfields and our last remnants of forests. And she said, any place is as good as any other place. Well, yes, if you live in a sort of a climate-controlled Netflix, Wi-Fi type life where Wi-Fi and Netflix is the same in California as it is in Alabama. And so, yeah, I guess if that's what life is to you. But if you're for someone who wants to get out into all this, then it's not the same. And you have to find that certain place. And so let's look at those conditions that set up a good place. One is we tend to not want to go out into certain places outside. It's just simply because we are not prepared to deal with mosquitoes. And mosquitoes are for real. Unless you're like Buddha, who could just seem to deal with that and not be bothered by that at all. But most of us would be bothered by that. And so if we make sure setting up the conditions for contemplative life means wearing the right clothes if you're going to be outside, and that means wearing plenty of them, loose fitting, but also covering ourselves so that the mosquito can't get to us. And that's definitely just one little thing, not the main thing. But when you get to some of the amazing people that we've studied, like Mother Teresa or Dorothy Day, you see people who are continually hounded by people. They lived very extroverted lives, and that's what they're known for. But I believe both women were pretty introverted. Mother Teresa literally could not go down the street without having people trying to touch her, because they thought there would be some special power from her. Mother Teresa did develop a very rich inner contemplative life. I met a guy in Mexico who had met Mother Teresa, and he said that she would spend at least an hour a day on her knees when she prayed. But she got that getaway, and I think she probably wouldn't have been who she was had she not gotten away from everybody. Same is true for Dorothy Day, who I believe was really a very introverted woman, who was a writer, and the place that she wrote at for the Catholic worker was turned into a soup kitchen because people would come and asking for food during the Great Depression. And there was a need, and so she tried to meet the need. And really, she's known today for her soup kitchen more than her writing, but she was a writer. And she just let people in all the time and almost moved herself out because she had so many people coming in. But she did have a getaway place. She had that certain place that she got to, and it was the beaches of Staten Island. But without these places, they probably couldn't have been as effective as they were. So that ends part one here about talking about setting up the conditions for it and making that time each day to really establish our contemplative life on the inside. And if I can get to it real quick, how does this tie into the external part of prayer? Because remember we said it's an internal contemplative thing, but it's also an external thing. And that happens because both Dorothy Day and Mother Teresa had a prayer life. Okay, so when they read Matthew 25, whatever you did unto the least as you did unto me, when I was thirsty, you gave me a glass of water. Well, they literally thought that the people that they met were sort of like Jesus, because Jesus said they were Jesus. And they took that dialogue that they had with these people almost as a form of prayer. And so there was an external prayer life going on when they talked to the people who were thirsty and hungry and naked that they worked with. And if you read Mother Teresa, she definitely talks about the importance of her focusing on whether she was talking to an orphan or a leper or someone who was dying. When she did that, Mother Teresa gave 100% of her focus to that person, almost as if it were like a prayer, a dialogue with Jesus going on. That's how serious she took her presence. And it's something to think about as we think about prayer in a deeper way, maybe, that it is not just this quiet time that we need. We need to get to that certain place, but it's also the way in which we talk to other people.